Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Wayne Blue. You are listening to the Hello and Welcome podcast. I have about 40 minutes before the Raptors conduct practice. And so I thought we would use those 40 minutes productively and just go through the four main reasons why the Raptors are back to their winning ways. If you haven't checked it out, last night the Raptors had an incredible win over the Charlotte Hornets. Scottie Barnes, Brandon Ingram, two huge blocks at the rim to rescue the game. The vibes are at an incredible high right now with the Raptors. 8-1 in their last 9 games. They are off right now. They are 9-5 right now. This is their best start through 14 games since the 2019-2020 season. And of course, that season was known as the championship defense season. And needless to say, it's been a long 5 years in between what happened in 2020 versus how we got here now. But I think it's a good reminder of sort of why the Raptors are exciting again, why we're appreciating this so much, why there's so much more interest in the team. And I know for some of the more casual listeners, maybe some of the more casual Raptors fans, they might be asking themselves, like, wait, hold on. How did the Raptors go from winning 25 games 2 seasons ago, winning 30 games last year, to now all of a sudden being on pace for a 50-win season? And I know that's like, whoa, that's a lot, but that's actually what the record currently sort of has them on the track to doing. And so the main question is, how are the Raptors good again? And so I'm going to give you the four main reasons as to why the Raptors are back to their winning ways. I want to start the first one, and I honestly think that it would be disingenuous to start anywhere else outside of the leadership of this team. But I really think that Darko Rajakovic has rebuilt the culture of this team. I think that he took over a really difficult situation when he was first hired. You remember how bad it was after the last game that Nick Nurse coached with this team. Nick obviously did great things for the organization, won a championship, won Coach of the Year, had been with the Raptors for 10 plus years, right? So, like, he served the organization really well. But when you look at the last game, which was the play-in game, known as the DeMar DeRozan's daughter screaming on free throws game, where the Raptors lost 18 missed free throws and lost to the Chicago Bulls, and they lost in the play-in, and they were 500 that season. I mean, that's already bad enough, but a lot of what went on behind the scenes was really bad. Team culture had really eroded. And so, of course, Nick publicly quit on the team, and I will never forgive him for that, but he publicly quit on the team before the regular season was even over. Spoke pregame in Philadelphia of all places, which, surprise, surprise, he turned out in Philadelphia, but basically declared, like, I might be a free agent. You know what I mean? So when we go back to that situation, what Darko was stepping into was a fractured team, a team that clearly needed to be taken apart and rebuilt. He knew he was in for a lot of losing. To be honest, for Darko, had not been a head coach in the NBA yet, so there wasn't that much prestige for him coming in either. And of course, I think management had their own directives as to what they wanted him to do with the team. And I think really it boils down to two things. And Masai, he can be quite transparent when he goes into press conferences. I think there were two things that he talked about in that stretch, which I think were really, really eye-opening at that time. The first one was they wanted to improve the player development on the team. We can hear from Masai, actually.
With the way that the younger players on the roster, the guys in and out of the rotation or with 905 have been developed at this point?
I think the answer there is no.
So they were not happy with the player development. And if you really listen to this answer, and I know Masai could sometimes do the politician talk thing, but I think the truth in his heart was that the Raptors had lost some of their culture.
I think it's by making major changes sometimes, and this is a major change we've made. There are things you have to shock, you have to hit, you have to. I think there has to be some kind of friction, some way, to do that. The culture here has been honestly like. We love it. It's incredible. I think we follow the culture of an incredible city, people, humility, everything that we stand for here, togetherness. And we lost some of that, but I don't think it's nothing that we cannot build right back up again. Some of this stuff sometimes, when these things happen, not winning pronounces it a little bit more, but we believe like we'll get right back even if it's slowly, back to where we feel that we can be as an organization and as a team.
So that's where the Raptors were 2 years ago, right? They need to rebuild the culture, and they need to importantly develop the players. And of course, they wanted obviously a new system of play as well. And I think on that front, and I know it's been a while since Darko has won games. I mean, literally, I think this is the first time that he's even been over 500 in the 3 seasons. But I think we're seeing a team that is being built brick by brick. And sometimes it's hard to see it in the moment. Admittedly, the same for me. Like, I get frustrated too when I see losses, no matter what. But I think this year is sort of the reward, the culmination, the first sign of like, this actually works. Year one, if you go back to year one, the main thing was Darko wanted to install his offense. It's a ball movement. Everyone's going to touch it. They're going to play a lot through their bigs. But really, they're trying to play 5 out. They're trying to have ball movement and just be a high assist type of team. To be honest, that team, the Raptors, were really bad. They won 25 games, but they were still 6th in assists per game. Now, granted, I think that says more about the system than the effectiveness of the offense at that time. But, a similar pattern happened the next year. The Raptors were 7th in assists, even though they only won 30 games. Well, right now, the Raptors are 3rd in assists per game in the NBA right now. They're just at 29.9 for the season. There's only 2 teams ahead of them slightly. It's Miami and Atlanta, and both of them are like ahead by like half an assist, basically. So I think the offensive improvements have been there basically from day one. They've moved from a team where Masai literally called them selfish, like over and over again, over multiple months, to a team that was like really rooted in unselfishness. And of course, it didn't really score much. The Raptors were not effective in it. But I think over the course of time, you're seeing some real habits come into play. I think one thing that actually really dictates this is even the newer players who have joined the team, and of course the Raptors have changed the roster a bunch. We'll go through that as well. But if we actually just watch the game winner from last night, where Raptors were tied at 108, they needed to get a basket, and they gave the ball to Brandon Ingram. This is not even after a timeout, too, so this is not a set play. I want you guys to watch this play here. Okay, so Ingram's going to get the ball in the post. He's going to draw the double team, lift everybody in the air, and he's going to find RJ Barrett last second for the cut. That puts the Raptors up 110 to 108, and of course the Raptors then go on for the double block. Here's the thing that you're not seeing, okay? Or you may not be seeing, because there's 3 small details that really, really make this game-winning play. First off, when they come down the floor, Brandon already recognizes that, we don't really need to run too much else, okay? I got Colin Sexton on me. Yes, he's an incredibly aggressive defender, and even though he's small, he'll play up, but that's a mismatch right away. And so quickly as the point guard recognizes this, he doesn't try to run anything else. He just tries to go to the mismatch and where that is. Once quickly goes over and throws the ball into the post to Brandon, here's what he's going to do. He's going to survey. You see that fake little stunt there by LaMelo Ball? Brandon Ingram literally pump fakes him back to his defender to then hold the ball a little bit longer. Then when he takes the dribble, the double team comes, right? Brandon's going to make sure the double team comes to him because that's going to create the advantage. But as that happens, you see how quickly he's literally at the top of the floor here? Quickly he's going to go to the strong side. He's going to go like a little bit to his right. And what that's going to do is that's going to pull Con Knipple, who right now is trying to play 2 defenders right here between RJ and IQ. He's going to pull Knipple out the way because, of course, Quickly is a threat to shoot. And so when you see Quickly run across, Knipple has to then follow him. Now, Brandon's going to pump fake. You can't even see Brandon really in this still frame because he's literally got 2 guys on him. But he pump fakes and he draws the attention fully to him. Jakob's going to flash towards the middle to give him an option in the middle. But really the option is to RJ. And if you notice, not only does Brandon pump fake and draw 2 defenders in the air, but he's strong enough to maintain his position, then jump midair, fake the pass out. Knipple thinks it's going out to Quickly, but instead RJ curls. And of course, once that happens, you see Jakob Poeltl, who rolled into this position. He's actually going to seal the shot blocker, Ryan Kalkbrenner, behind him. And what that does is prevent Ryan from being able to put a real contest on RJ. Ryan is a very, very good shot blocker, even as a rookie, 7-foot-plus player. But again, Jakob's positioning there allows RJ to get in for the layup. And so there's 3 small details, right? There's IQ's movement to space. There's Jakob's movement to screen, and then there's also Brandon's just like you can't really teach poise and instinct like that, but to pump fake once with the pass, to then pump fake again to draw the double team, and then to hang midair to make the right pass to RJ Barrett. This is not scripted, but I think it really shows a couple of things. Number one, Raptors have really developed as a team in terms of how to play together. And I think that that's been really clear over the last couple of months based on the way you've seen the Raptors play. They haven't really had the talent to execute a lot of that, but I think this is sort of the convergence of that. But we'll get to the talent in a bit because, again, I want to really focus on this point about Darko. He's brought the ball movement, and I think more than anything else, after the first year, I remember, we were at Summer League. This is 2024, and I remember just waiting in the tunnel, watching the game end and then waiting for the Raptors game to start. And, Darko came up to me and Alex just before the game. And obviously he wasn't even coaching at that time, right? He's not coaching the Summer League roster. But he came up just to chit chat. And I'm just like, how does his team look, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, you know what? Year one, we did all the passing and I think we did a good job. But year two, and this is his words, we have to effing defend. And I was like, okay, that's stuck in my mind. I'm like, okay, we are going to go from a team that really was bad defensively in his first year to how are we going to get this team to be solid defensively. And honestly, the first half of last season was really bad. Like I can't stress this enough. The Raptors in the first 41 games of the 2023-2024 season, they were 26th on defense. Okay, the only teams worse than them were like the abhorrent tankers, like the Utah Jazz, the Washington Wizards of the world. The Raptors through 41 games were, again, 26th in defense. During that time, they had set franchise records, including most points allowed in any game, 155. So it was pretty bad. However, the turnaround happened mid-season. I think, honestly, some of the shocking defeats, especially to Memphis and to I think Boston in particular last year, really got this team to sort of like lock in and focus. And I think, honestly, a lot of the key players, Scottie Barnes in particular, took responsibility for the team. But the last 41 games, when you talk about the first half versus the second half, the last 41 games, the Raptors were second in defensive rating. Right now, the Raptors, again, are back in the top 10 in defensive rating. And this is despite a stretch of 4 games where the Raptors were like giving up 130. But they've been great on defense. And actually, during this 8-1 stretch, the Raptors are I think second best on defense in that stretch, only behind OKC. But last 41 games of last season, they were second in defense. Now, granted, a lot of the players who are playing that time were not playing right now. And we'll show you the names because it's actually kind of a crazy disparity when you see the two rosters. But that is something that was tangible, and that was something that was real. And we're seeing that culture and that effort and that execution translate to this season. So he improved the offense in year one, and then year two, he improved the defense. And that's how right now, as we speak, Raptors are top 10 in both offensive and defensive rating. It's been a long, long time since the Raptors are that. So that's number one. I really want to give Darko his credit because really the improvement has been there in terms of team culture, especially when you hear about what Masai wanted after the coaching change originally. Number two, and this is the most important part for the front office. The front office improved the talent. And you can say what you want about, team strategy, development, scouting, and all those things are very important. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, we know what the job is. So front office's job is to bring talent into the Toronto Raptors organization. And I want to use front office here because obviously there was a time where Masai was the president, Bobby was the GM, and now Masai's gone and Bobby is the top guy. So I want to give credit to both parties. But honestly, it should really say Bobby Webster improved the talent because, a lot of this is his responsibility. You look at the players that are playing out there today. Brandon Ingram last year was going through, admittedly, a pretty tough year. He wanted a contract extension. The Pelicans were not willing to give him that contract extension. His contract was coming to an end. He got injured as well. Lou Dort slid his foot under his jump shot, kind of Zaza Pachulia style, and ultimately he hurt his ankle and only played 18 games. Lastly, he didn't even play for the Raptors. However, the Raptors were still one of two main teams interested in Brandon Ingram at the trade deadline. It was Toronto and it was Atlanta. And of course, the Raptors were able to secure Brandon, and it wasn't even that big of a trade, right? At that time, people were really confused. I remember their initial reaction was, why did we do this? What does this mean? Are we not tanking anymore? Like, is the rebuild over? What does this really mean for a team at that time that was like 12th in the conference to add Brandon Ingram? But, and you can listen back to what we said at that time too. When I reflected on the trade, I'm like, wait, this makes sense because the price was just so low. Like, first off, you're never going to get free agent talent of his caliber to ever just sign in Toronto. You're always going to have to trade for them, okay? You can go through the history of the Raptors. That is what happened. You either draft them or you trade for them. We never sign guys of this caliber in free agency. So fine, you're doing pre-agency when you trade for an impending free agent. But then what are you giving up? Kelly Olynyk, who, all due respect, Canadian boy, great. We loved it, but just was definitely past his prime. And he had another year on his contract. So we're getting rid of him. And then Bruce Brown, who was literally burrowing a hole in the pocket, right? The Raptors trade for Bruce Brown. I remember even at that time, the reason they wanted Bruce Brown was for the optionality. And what does that mean? Basically, it means we can trade him and use him as a trade chip because he has a very tradable salary. It's worth a lot, but it's also not for a long term. And that's basically how he got traded for Pascal from Indiana in the first place. And that's actually how he ultimately got traded for Brandon Ingram. Of course, you throw in the 2026 Indiana pick, and I know people are already like, well, come on, that's going to be a really good pick. That's not fair because nobody could have thought at that time, because Indiana should have been like a 25th pick, basically. Indiana was great. They literally made it to Game 7 of the finals. Nobody could have predicted at the time that Tyrese Halliburton would snap his Achilles in the biggest moment, and then that would lead to Miles Turner leaving the team. And on top of that, everybody on the outside of Pascal Siakam will be injured to start the Pacers season. It's a very disingenuous argument because you cannot ask the front office to have the vision to foresee all those things. Regardless, at that time, a low first-round pick, 2 expiring veteran contracts, you make the trade. You then, of course, that when you bring in Brandon, there's an extension in mind. I know a lot of people were like, well, maybe he makes the max. He's not going to make the max. He's going to make around $38 million this season, and it's going to build from there. Totally reasonable for a player who can deliver all-star level performances. Look at last night. 27 points, 5 stocks, the game-winning assist, the game-saving block, the 2, not just 1, but 2 poster dunks at the rim. Just incredible stuff. 3-level score. You know what I mean? Something that the Raptors haven't had. You look at the half-court scoring and the ability to have somebody get you a shot and a shot clock, bail you out, but also play within your system, right? Because if you look at it, Brandon's not even dominating the ball. He's not the number 1 guy on the team in touches. You know what I mean? He's just been able to slide in with an efficient 3-level scoring of 20 points per game, just slide him right into your roster. And that has really, really boosted the Raptors offense. Again, the Raptors are top 10 in offensive rating on both sides right now. And I think Brandon Ingram being installed as sort of that go-to guy when they need it has been huge. And I think in particular, the Raptors haven't played a lot of clutch games in terms of close games you need to really execute down the stretch. But what I've liked in those small moments, because we saw that last night, was they know where they're going to go to. Yeah, again, we go to that play where RJ got the layup to go ahead. That was Brandon Ingram, man. Brandon Ingram made most of that play happen. And, of course, credit to the teammates and RJ making the cut, Yak making the seal, and quickly doing the spacing. But the guy who cooked for all that was Brandon. You know what I mean? And I think that as we get to more closer games, as the Raptors get more competitive and they're facing tougher opponents, what I'm looking for is how they execute in crunch time. And the addition of Brandon gives them not only a more talented operator, but a much more experienced operator that they quite frankly haven't had in a very long time. And I mean a very long time, because basically since Kyle Lowry was on this team, we've been largely rolling with inexperienced or even Fred and Pascal. I would feel like in crunch time just didn't really come through in that way that made you feel that secure. I'm hoping that Brandon delivers to that level. But so far, so good. And of course, you look at the smaller stuff. Sandro Mamukelashvili, right? This is a signing that the Raptors made. That was the only real free agent addition they added during the offseason period. He comes in for the biannual exception. It's very low. And usually that's I don't know, who would we sign with that? Like Rondé, Stanley Johnson, you know what I mean? Jalen McDaniels, you know what I mean? It's not just based on the salary slot, you don't expect this much production. But Sandro's come in, and first off, his true shooting is in the 70s, which is incredible. That'll obviously come down a little bit, but he has just fit the system so well. The Raptors have always wanted a spacing 5. Now, granted, they have Jakob as a starter, and they've made him the starter for the next 4 years at least. But especially for that second year, they wanted to start a stretch 5. You can even look at Kelly Olynyk, who played that role last year. That's kind of what they wanted. The issue was Kelly was really, again, just old. You know what I mean? Shouts to Kelly again. Nobody loves the Raptors more than Kelly Olynyk. Trust me, this guy was sleeping with a clock radio, listening to Fan 590, listening to Paul Jones. You know what I mean? So nobody loves the Raptors more than Kelly Olynyk. I want to give him his respect, but you know what I mean? He just didn't have it physically anymore. Sandro's come in as the idealized version of what that's supposed to be. A ball moving, floor spacing five who you can put in a variety of situations. He could post up for a little bit for you, hit mismatches. He could space in the corner for you and allow Scottie and CMB to be the main screen and roller. He could also push the pace, which the Raptors have really, really tried to do. And that second unit plays so fast. He can rip the rebound push. And then he's actually not bad defensively. Like, obviously he's not a shot blocker in the way that you would expect for a center. But he has a little bit of that sneaky athleticism as well. I think everyone understands the impact that Sandro's brought. And I also think that, look, you have productive players on rookie contracts. And in today's modern NBA, you're basically going to look at salary slots, right? You have probably 2 max contract slots that you can pay. And obviously in the Raptors right now, you have Brandon, you have Scottie. Then you have 2 to 3 good level starter money, which is basically around $30 million in today's NBA. And you have RJ, who's a little bit under that, IQ is a little bit over that, and Yaku was a little bit under that. Those are the 3 slots that you have. After that, once you fill that out, you basically need to have productive rookie scale contract players, or in Mamu's case, basically minimum level contract players to be able to produce for you at a high level. And that's where developing has really come into play. That's where scouting has really come into play. And I'm looking at 3 players who are in the Raptors rotation right now. Grady Dick, who I know it's not the same explosive numbers as compared to the start of last season when he was scoring 20, sometimes even 30 points a game as the starter. But what I'm seeing from Grady Dick is not only his efficiency is better, but it's the overall ability to put more energy per minute out there. And I don't know if you can really quantify this, but Grady Dick is learning how to play harder in less time. And I think this is going to be good for him in the future of his career. Because right now, obviously, he's a second unit guy, maybe in the future because promoted back to being a starter. But what you're seeing from Grady is he's like racing ahead. There was that game against the Pacers when the Raptors won over the weekend. He had 3 straight layups to beat the fast break. You know what I mean? And like, that's what I mean. The hustle, the intensity. You even look at some of the pictures of him. He looks like he's stronger. This is natural progression for a third-year player. But he's put in a lot of work, man. Because honestly, when Grady was a rookie like 2.5 years ago, he was genuinely like one of the least productive players in the first half of his rookie campaign in the entire NBA. They put him down to the G League, and he was still shooting in the 30s. It was just really difficult. But again, the one thing that the Raptors, and I've heard this from Masai, I've heard this from Bobby, the number one thing that they liked about Grady is this kid is tough. Like, you're not gonna knock this guy out. This guy is like he maintains his confidence. And when you hear Grady talk about it too, it's the next shot mentality. He literally just forgets about the last shot he takes. And that doesn't mean like he's like J.R. Smith in terms of like, oh, I'm going to forget what's happening out there. It's not like that, or like Andrea Bernani passing the caliper test. This is like a player who is like really, really mentally tough. And I think he's starting to put together different elements of it, and he's showing you a lot of different stuff. But I think Grady's been great. His plus minus has been, one of the leaders of the team. Speaking of which, Jamal Shed has been awesome. Everyone already knows what Jamal Shed has done. I thought in his rookie year, Jamal was awesome. But here's the stat that is like starting to blow my mind. So when you look at assists per 36 minutes, right? Because obviously not everyone plays the same amount of minutes. It's not really fair to compare 1-to-1. Assists per 36 minutes. If I had to ask you who you think is going to lead the league in assists per 36 minutes, you'd probably tell me it's Nikola Jokic, and it's absolutely correct. Jokic is an alien, and he's averaging 11.6 assists per 36 minutes. Number 2 in the NBA in assists per 36 minutes among players who have played at least like 6 games, let's say, is Jamal Shed. Jamal is literally right behind Jokic for how many assists per 36 minutes he produces. He's at 10 assists per 36 minutes. It's kind of incredible. Some of that obviously is a product of, again, playing in Darko's system, moving the ball, but a lot of that is credit to Jamal, man. Like the fact that this kid is leading some camps in the offseason to get his team to train together. The fact that during the bad start to the season, Jamal was one of the people who spoke up. The fact that you constantly see him making leadership plays on and off the court, that's rare, man. That's really rare. And especially for a guy who, again, the Raptors got him for the 45th pick, and they got that 45th pick for free in the trade to get rid of Jalen McDaniels, who was genuinely one of the worst Raptors I've ever seen with my eyes. And I've seen 20 years of Raptors basketball. It's not all been pretty. We got that out of that trade. I mean, that's incredible. And of course, this year's first round pick, Colin Murray-Boyles. Yes, the Raptors tanked last season. They got a little bit unlucky with the lottery balls. They slide down to 9th. But honestly, even if the Raptors picking 8th, even if they're picking 7th, even if they're picking 6th, I think they still take Colin. Because based on their own assessment of Colin, outside of Cooper Flag, this is the best defender they saw in the draft. And of course, offensively, he's already starting to show some real flashes as well. He's had some pretty nice games. Now, of course, he's more up and down. He's a rookie. Last game, he smoked the dunk. Like, he's going to have ups and downs. That's normal, right? But I think already the fact that he's playing a contributing and winning role in a winning team is pretty important. He's already made some starts as well. He's done great. And I think the number one thing with Colin is that they assess that he's a great defender. Well, right now in the Raptors, in terms of deflections per game, right? Just in terms of deflections, forget steals and blocks. Obviously, number one is Scottie Barnes at 4.4. He's one of the NBA leaders in that. But second on the Raptors already, despite him only playing off the bench, is Colin Murray-Boyles at 2.5 per game. I think that tells you right away he reads the game really well. So when you look at the roster, they've improved it. Yes, at the top end with Brandon Ingram, but also at the bottom end. That bench right now is really nice for the Raptors. Sandro, Jamal, Grady, CMB. When those four check in, they change the game, and they've consistently delivered results for the team. And of course, look, we've talked about it long enough, man. This is ultimately Scottie Barnes' team, and they're going to go where Scottie goes. And the way Scottie is doing it right now, Scottie, to me, is putting it all together. I mean, let's start with the defense, which Scottie's always been great at, but I think he's taken it to another level this year as well. When you look at steals plus blocks, right, stocks, basically, number one in the NBA, again, you could probably guess, it's Victor Wembanyama, 56 stocks so far, and of course, that's with Victor missing a couple games here as well. Second in the NBA in stocks per total stocks is Scottie Barnes at 45. Scottie has 20 steals on the season already and 25 blocks. Actually, Scottie's tied for 5th in the NBA for most blocks total. That's ridiculous. This guy doesn't even play center. You know what I mean? When you look at the stocks leaders, they're all centers, like Miles Turner, Wemby, you know what I mean? Like guys like that. He's he's right there as a guy who's 6'8", 6'9", sometimes plays point guard for the team. It's been really incredible. I think we've seen multiple games where Scottie's put together back-to-back games where he was, like back-to-back games where he had 6 stocks. Like it's kind of ridiculous. I also think that it was interesting to hear Scottie talk about, the discussion over like, okay, who is he actually guarding, right? Because I remember last time I went to practice, there was a question in terms of like, looks like you've been, getting a lot of plays off the ball defensively. And Scottie pushed back. He's like, wait, hold on. I've been guarding the ball. I've been guarding the ball too. Like, don't take that away from me. And so if you look at the numbers here, these are this is the matchup time in terms of who Scottie Barnes has spent the most time matched up with defensively. Number one, Evan Mobley, okay, who is an all-star player, all-NBA player, defensive player of the year, future Tim Duncan, future Kevin Garnett. We all know about Evan Mobley, right? These are the players that Scottie Barnes has guarded the most so far. Evan Mobley, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jalen Johnson, Pascal Siakam, Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, Jaren Jackson Jr., Alperen Şengün. That is outside of Jalen Johnson, who should be an all-star this year. Every single player on this list is an all-star. There's 2 MVPs on this roster. There's so many all-NBA players on this roster. And that's who he's been guarding the most time on. You know what I mean? Like, so yes, he's putting up those incredible like help defense numbers, which is steals and blocks usually, because you're not usually just ripping your man one-on-one or usually just blocking your man one-on-one. So he's playing great help defense, and he's having to guard these tough assignments. I mean, first off, the Raptors have really played some difficult teams already. As you can see, these are some really, really established players. Again, Evan Mobley, Giannis, Jalen Johnson, Pascal Siakam, Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, Jaren Jackson, Alperen Şengün. But I think to me, it's just like he's taking on this responsibility. Out of this list, if I had to ask you, who is Scottie Barnes bigger than? Not bigger than Evan, not bigger than Jalen, probably Giannis, probably like size with Jalen Johnson. Maybe you would say like size with Pascal, even though he's slightly taller. Smaller than AD, smaller than Joel Embiid, smaller than Jaren Jackson, smaller than Alperen Şengün. That means he is taking on the responsibility of fighting against bigger players, and he's, again, doing it for the team. I think this has just been absolutely huge. Again, when you look at who he's been guarding while delivering these great results, it's no wonder that, he should be in strong consideration if he keeps this ball year for all defensive teams for the first time in his career. He absolutely deserves to be on there. He is taking on an incredible, defensive burden for the team. But I think also, too, he's more efficient this year as well. And some of that is obviously his own improvement. They've talked about how he's improved mechanically in terms of with the three-point shot. Darko won't say what specifically, but they revealed that they had a biomechanist work on his shot a little bit. Jama's obviously done a great job, working with him as well. But just in general, like, there's some real skill development for Scottie across the board. Last year, he really worked on the mid-range shooting. Nowadays, he's so confident from the mid-range. He's not forcing them. He's not spamming them. But when teams go zone, for example, like the Cavs went zone against the Raptors, Scottie walked right into the mid-range, and he's like, I'm going to shoot this. I'm open. I'm going to knock this down, no problem, right? Like, he's been really confident with that. But he's also been knocking down the threes. The thing where Scottie is, I just think he's in the right role, right? Like, because I think because he's so flexible in terms of how talented he is and how smart he is to be able to play multiple positions, and obviously because of how much the Raptors have changed the roster around him. I mean, literally, he's the only guy standing from when he first joined the team 4 years ago. Like to put it in perspective, I believe Scottie Barnes' longest tenured teammate is Jakob Poeltl, who was traded to the team midway through his second season. And his second longest tenure teammate is Grady Dick. You know what I mean? Like that to me is kind of absurd. So like obviously he's had to change the style of play he's played with, but I think what the Raptors have done is actually surround him with the type of pieces to prevent him from having to compensate elsewhere. What I mean by that is he's not having to play center no more, which he played a lot of center in his first 2 years. Basically, since Jakob Poeltl came over. Before that, he was playing a lot of center. It was either him, Pascal, or OG, and Scottie honestly most of the time did the center duties. So he's not having to play center. He's also not having to create every shot, which last season we saw the limitations of that. Scottie had a really inefficient year last year. The Raptors really struggled offensively last year in terms of efficiency. We know that he's not the guy you give the ball to every single time, like a Luka, to give you to create every single time. However, what that's also done is you brought in Brandon Ingram to be the main creator. You brought in Jakob Poeltl to be the full-time center, obviously. And now all of a sudden you free up Scottie to do a lot more other stuff. Not only can he focus a little bit more energy on defense, which he's producing at a great rate, but you're also seeing him be more efficient playing in his role. Some games he's the screener in the pick and roll. Some games he's spacing out on the perimeter, which he's done a great job of. Some games he's still initiating, like the starting five still trying to figure out their balance. And a lot of that is Scottie basically kind of running and setting the table and running point for that starting group. So it's not to say his role is not always changing even now, but I think it frees him up to do more what he's great at, which is the energy to go in transition, the ability to make the next pass, getting in the post, using his size down low, and then either finishing or dishing it off. I mean, last night in the crunch time, you saw him tie the game at 108 with that offensive rebound, 2 hard dribbles, turnaround dunk on Miles Turner or on Miles Bridges. You saw him with the 2 slick assists to Jakob Poeltl as well in the fourth quarter to start that. He's been playing closer to the basket, and overall he's just more efficient. Like I think that when you start to the start of the season, Bobby sort of outlined his vision for the team. Brandon's going to shoot. Scottie loves to pass. But also, they wanted Scottie to play free throw line and in. And yes, he's been doing a good job with the threes, but he's not living and dying by the threes. If Scottie makes his threes, it's nice. But realistically, it's all the other stuff that he's doing. And he's connecting. He's not just the glue of this team, but again, it's the importance of this. And I think it's also just small things like the maturity has been really good. Last night on the broadcast, you saw after the Raptors got that first block where Brandon Ingram came in and swatted the hell out of Ryan Kalkbrenner, the loose ball kind of like scrambled around and kind of went out of bounds. And I think Emmanuel quickly was like, oh, review. The Raptors still had 2 timeouts they had to review. You could totally review that. Raptors ultimately never even reviewed. But it was Scottie himself who was like, don't review it. Like, I think it's off of us. And I think there's a maturity to that. Last night's game, Scottie Barnes drove to the basket, I swear, at least 10 times. Got 0 free throws out of it. A lot of physicality. By the way, the Hornets shot twice as many free throws as the Raptors. You know what I mean? Like, the officiating was pretty terrible. But in that second quarter, Scottie was just playing through it, man. And by his willingness to play through it, and obviously a lot of that was unjust, but when he locks in on the task at hand and tries to take it full on, not only does his physicality often beat the physicality of other guys, like, he don't need a free throw to be effective, okay? He can just play through that. But also, when he did that, he kind of overwhelmed the Hornets, and that allowed the Raptors to build a double-digit advantage because Scottie literally kept getting the paint over and over and over again. And this whole offense is built, obviously the passing is nice, but a lot of it's built on paint touches. When you look at Jamal, how he gets assists, when you look at Scottie, how he scores, when you look at Jakob's efficiency, when you look at, RJ's efficiency, it's all paint touches. And I think that Scottie has done a great job of playing through a lot of contact. And just the overall maturity level. I mean, that's always been a topic of conversation, but I think, more and more you're seeing it across the board. It's been a lot of really, really good moments for Scottie Barnes. And then I think last thing, really, because I'm running out of time and I got to go to practice. I'm excited to go see what they're doing today and what they'll do for Philadelphia on Wednesday, is the Raptors are just finally not tanking anymore, man. Like, yo, trust me, as somebody who comes in after every game and does the React Pod for like 8-9 years now, like the job is a lot better when they're winning, and it's not just from my end, it's from your end as well, because we saw last night there was like, between the YouTube and the Twitter numbers, there were like 3,000 people watching live. Like, and that's kind of ridiculous. Like that's a lot for a Monday game against the Charlotte Hornets. You look at last year at this time, the Raptors, instead of being 9-5, they were 2-14. That's our 2-12 through the first 14 games. We may have had like 150 people watching on YouTube and a couple hundred watching on Twitter. Like, the audience is starting to come back. And I think obviously the Raptors have always had a strong fan base. But more important than that, the Raptors are giving you a reason to watch, man. Like, they're not just tanking anymore. They're not starting the season being like, hey, this season's not about winning. Remember Jakob Poeltl going viral for, basically the only time Jakob Poeltl's ever gone viral in his life. But Jakob Poeltl, who is the most uncontroversial man, but maybe like so transparent and so honest in many ways, he was like, yeah, man, it's not that important if we win or lose this season. And granted, it wasn't. It was actually more important that they lost than that they won. But the Raptors were full on tanking last season. Just fully tanking last season. Of course, it helped that the Raptors have been much healthier, and knock on wood, but like hopefully they stay that way, because the health of the team is going to be really important. But like it's not close. This is who the Raptors have for their top minutes played so far on the season. Okay, we have Brandon Ingram, who's played the most minutes, which is huge, by the way. Brandon literally only played 18 games last year. Brandon has now come back and he's looked fully, he's there. Obviously, he's maybe not playing at 100%, peak capacity, but we also saw a bit of that when he dunked all over the Hornets last night. But Brandon, Scottie Barnes, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Jakob Poeltl, those have been your 5 most minutes played, which obviously you would expect those are the starters. And then Jamal Shead, Grady Dick, Sandro Mamukelashvili, Colin Murray-Boyles. That's your 9-man rotation. That's who's been playing for the team. You compare that to and again, this is through 14 games, right? This is the first 14 games. This is who played the most minutes for the team last year at this time. You might have to zoom in a little bit. But number 1 in minutes played for the first 14 games of last year, Grady Dick. Number 2, Jakob Poeltl. Number 3, Ochai Agbaji, who is still on the team, but just getting DNPs at the moment. Number 4, Davion Mitchell who was getting the most minutes for the Raptors. Then RJ Barrett, Chris Boucher, Jamal Shead, Jonathan Mobo, Jamison Battle. Scottie Barnes doesn't even pop up until 10th on this list. Then Bruno Fernando, remember him? Bruno Fernando was playing. And then Emmanuel Quickley, who the Raptors obviously just freshly signed to a 5-year contract at this point, was 12th on this list, having only played 67 minutes through the first 14 games. So again, this is like the 9-man rotation through the first 14 games, and this is the 12-man rotation through the first 14 games of last year. Night and day with the injuries, obviously. At the start of last season, Scottie got hurt. Jokic broke his face, and then IQ, Garland broke his. I don't even remember what happened, but he was just really banged up. So obviously the talent level has improved. You look at some of the names. Obviously, Sandro's a lot better than who he's replacing, Bruno Fernando. Colin Murray-Boyles is better than Jonathan Mobo. Some of the players, Jamal, Grady, they've improved year over year. Jakob's healthier, IQ's healthier. Obviously, Brandon, I don't even know who he's replacing in this situation. Like Chris Boucher, come on, it's not even a debate, right? Shouts to friend of the program, Chris Boucher, but it's not close. However, this is just one of the things. I also wanted to show you. This is the list of the most minutes played from February onward of last season, when the Raptors really kicked their tank to another level. You remember at this time, the Raptors were intentionally resting many players. They were like kind of alternating the rest too. So like IQ and Yak would rest one day, and then RJ would rest the next day. And then, of course, they were adding like just random filler players to the roster with all due respect. You know what I mean? Like I respect their professionalism, but man, like they were just like anonymous Raptors who were just signed just to fill bodies as the Raptors tried to tank their way through a pretty easy schedule towards the second half of last season. So this is, again, from February onward, who played the most minutes. Scottie Barnes, Jamal Shead. Number 3 in most minutes played from February onwards was Orlando Robinson, Jamison Battle, Jonathan Mobo, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, AJ Lawson, who's been killing it for the 905, but, still. Jacoby Walter, Ochai Agbaji, Jakob Poeltl, Colin Castleton, Jared Rhoden, and Grady Dick, 14th on this list. They were intentionally holding out players. And of course, on this list, by the way, Brandon Ingram was fully on the team at this time, was just using the time to recover. So he doesn't even show up on this list at all. But you're talking about Orlando Robinson was third on the Raptors in terms of most minutes played. They're finally allowed to win again. They're not tanking anymore. That really goes a long way, man. And obviously, it's not that's one of the most underrated things about being in the NBA is when you go from a rebuilding team to then suddenly trying to flip the switch to winning. It's hard. It's difficult. It's uncertain, really. And it takes a lot of leadership and a lot of belief in the principles of the team. And a lot of things have to click. And you really probably have to bring in outside help. And I think that's what's happening. They brought the outside help. Brandon Ingram is here. And you look at what he did last night. That was great. They're really believing in each other, right? Darko, all credit to him. When the Raptors were bad, he made them pass the ball, learn how to play off of each other, and then really establish a defensive culture in his year 2. And that's how in year 3, we're seeing a team that's competitive, top 10 on both offense and defense. And at number 3, you're seeing the growth of the players themselves, especially as leaders. When I'm talking about the starters, I'm talking about Scottie Barnes. And when I'm talking about the bench, I'm talking about Jamal Shed. A lot of that is better. And of course, now the question is, how long can the Raptors sustain this for? What happens when they have some injuries, which is inevitable? And then ultimately, can they make themselves, in a position to be competing for the playoffs, make the playoffs, and then we'll see what they do from there. But before you sort of jump ahead to all these other questions and maybe what they do at the trade deadline and all this other stuff, the last thing I'll say is, again, the Raptors haven't been 4 games over 500 since 2022. They're 9-5 on the season. They haven't started that well to start a season since 2020. Please just enjoy the moment. Sit in the games, watch them, whether that's next game against Philadelphia, the next game against Washington. Enjoy a homestand, go to a Raptor game. Actually tap in and just sit with the wins and just enjoy them to the fullest. Yes, it's Monday against the Hornets. Yes, it probably didn't need to be that close. Yes, they didn't play a perfect game, but man, this is a young team improving. And as a longtime Raptor fan, I'll tell you this much. It's great to have the expectations to know that you're a great team and to try to go over the top and try to beat LeBron or try to beat Steph and Giannis and Embiid for the championship. That's all great. But one of the most underrated things in sports is when a young team starts to finally work. And when you have that, which is where the Raptors are right now, you just have to savor it and enjoy it. So thank you for listening. I'm going to run off to practice now, but I hope you guys appreciate it. Let me know if I missed any key reasons as to why the Raptors are winning, in your opinion. And otherwise, I appreciate you guys for listening to the Hello and Welcome podcast, and we'll catch you after tomorrow's game.